guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is an entitled people story. Approximately 6 or 7 months ago, a neighbor of mine, who I will refer to as Joe, acquired a drone. At first, I thought it was just another harmless hobby he had picked up, and I didn't pay much attention to it. However, it didn't take long for me to realize that Joe had no intention of using his drone responsibly. Joe's drone flying antics quickly became a nuisance in our neighborhood. He would hover his drone in front of other houses and windows, trying to race cars on the road. To make matters worse, he had the habit of flying his drone into my fenced backyard and buzzing it over my dog. He would dive low, barely missing my dog's head, only to circle around and repeat the process. My dog is a Malamute and weighs about 70 pounds, but the drone terrified him. I was genuinely worried about what would happen if it hit him. I politely asked Joe several times not to fly his drone in my yard because it was scaring my dog. Unfortunately, he was obstinate and laughed at me, refusing to comply with my request. After his disobedience persisted, I called the police for help. However, they couldn't do much except request that he avoid flying his drone over my house and property. I felt helpless and didn't know what else to do. But then, fate intervened. In late December, my dog, fed up with Joe's antics, decided to take matters into his own paws. As the drone was diving towards him, he caught it and shredded it to bits. The drone was in pieces, just a jumbled mess of wires and plastic. I was relieved that my dog was safe, but Joe was not amused. He stormed over to my house, yelling and swearing at me, even threatening me. But I wasn't afraid. A week later, I was served a summons to small claims court, claiming that I owed Joe $900 for the cost of his drone and an additional $300 for allegedly denying him access to his property. I refused to pay for his drone. My dog's life was worth more than that. I sought advice from a legal advice forum and was grateful for the support I received. It turned out that Joe's lawsuit was the best thing that ever happened to me. At small claims court, the judge laughed at Joe's claims that I had trained my dog to attack his drone intentionally. However, I was well prepared. I had dozens of photos of my yard, which showed that it was impossible for Joe to accidentally fly that low to my dog, videos of him harassing my dog in the past, and all of the medical bills I had incurred taking my dog to the vet. The costs added up quickly. I had to pay $700 for an X-ray, another $250 to sedate my dog during the process, and $400 for a full dental exam with tooth cleaning and repair. I also had to buy anti-anxiety meds for my dog, as well as a secondary checkup, wet food for a week in case his teeth were hurt, and extra medication just for good measure. In the end, Joe ended up owing me almost $2,000. But that wasn't the end of the story. Joe's drone flight activities were not registered, and he was violating several FAA regulations concerning drone flight. Joe was being investigated by the FAA for being too close to an airport, too close to other people, flying out of sight of the operator, and going way above the maximum altitude. His drone flying days were over, and he could never fly drones again. In conclusion, the experience taught me never to underestimate the value of preparedness. The evidence I gathered helped me win the case and put a stop to Joe's reckless behavior. It also reinforced the importance of standing up for what's right, especially when it comes to the safety of loved ones. After the case was settled, Joe became the neighborhood pariah. Everyone knew what he had done and the consequences he faced. He was no longer welcome at any social events, and people would avoid him on the street. Joe's life was ruined, and he only had himself to blame. However, the story doesn't end there. A few weeks after the court case, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Joe's lawyer, informing me that Joe had appealed the decision and was seeking a new trial. I couldn't believe it. He was really going to drag this out even further. I knew I had to prepare myself for a second round in court. I began gathering even more evidence, including witness statements from other neighbors who had seen Joe's drone flying recklessly. I also reached out to a local drone expert, who provided me with information on FAA regulations and how Joe had violated them. The new trial was scheduled for a few months later, and I was ready. This time, Joe's lawyer was unable to refute the evidence I had gathered. The judge was appalled by Joe's behavior and ruled in my favor once again. Joe was ordered to pay me even more than before, and his reputation was damaged beyond repair. From that day forward, Joe never bothered me or my dog again. He had learned his lesson the hard way, and it was a lesson that he would never forget. As for me, I was grateful for the outcome of the court case, as it gave me a sense of justice and closure. The next story is titled Confirm Work or I Don't Get to Do It. Cool, then I don't get to do it. My fiancé, 27 meters, and I work for the same company, and this actually happened to him a few days ago, but thought someone might get a kick out of it. We work for a trucking company that has dedicated contracted work. I found the job posting, showed it to him, and we both decided to apply for it. The job posting was listed as home daily. When we did the joke of a phone interview, we were told home daily. When we finished our initial training and spoke to the account manager, we were told home daily. That was all nearly 4 years ago. Flash forward 3 years, roughly a year ago, and things start falling apart. The company we work for is rather large, and the account manager has very little sway over the contracts that the company negotiates with the client. It's done by a regional manager. So, during the yearly contract update in 2022, the client makes more demands and offers less pay. The district manager just wants to keep the client as a customer and agrees blindly without thorough consideration. The biggest change that matters for the story is there were new stores added to the contract to be covered by the account, and 2 out of 4 of the new stores are not home daily. There were many other changes that happened. That's just the one that most directly affects the next series of events. Due to some other changes that drastically messed up the life of the office workers for the account manager, who had been working for the company for 10+ years, quits without warning. We get a new account manager, Sarah. A few months later, one of the 2 supervisors, who had been with the company for 10+ years, quits without warning. We get a new supervisor, more on him in a tick. 2 months after that, the second supervisor, who had been with the company for 10+ years, quits without warning. See a pattern here? So now, the account is left with an account manager and a supervisor who both have less than a year's experience, flailing to figure everything out. Back to the bit about home daily. About 6 months ago, my fiancé started getting the loads that were not home daily. It took him a day and a half to complete one of the new stores. Day 1 he would go up to the store, day 2 he would come back and do a super short run to conclude his shift before coming home. The first time he got the new store, he called the supervisor to ask about it. The supervisor was confused what needed clarification. My fiancé: will I be getting home? It's a lot of miles for a single day's run. Supervisor: no, you'll be sleeping roughly at truck stop about 4 hours away from home. My fiancé: I thought I was home daily? Supervisor: who said that? My fiancé: the job was posted as home daily. I was told home daily during the interview, and I was told home daily by the previous account manager at training. Supervisor: well, I don't know anything about that. I wasn't here for any of that. What I do know is that Sarah looked at everyone's contracts, and nobody has home daily in the contract, so everyone is expected to take equal share of the new stores to make it fair. My fiancé: okay, but I know there are some guys who were hired home weekends, because they sleep at the operating center in their trucks, and go home for 4 days every so often. Supervisor: yeah, we have some guys who live out of state. My fiancé: so why aren't they doing the new stores since they don't need to go home every night? Supervisor: as I said, everyone is expected to take equal share to make it fair, and nobody's contracts state home daily, or weekend home time, or whatever. That was never part of the deal. My fiancé: I have a family. I took this job thinking I'd have time with them. I wouldn't have taken the job if I knew it wasn't in my contract that I'd be home daily. Supervisor: well, you're free to get another job if you like, but without 10 days notice you'll be blacklisted and ineligible for rehire. So are you quitting or not? My fiancé angrily did the load thinking it was going to be a once every now and then thing. Turns out, they sent him twice a week, bare minimum. On top of that, most of the miles for the load are back roads up and down windy mountainous roads posted at 35 miles per hour. We are paid by the miles. He drives an additional 4 hours. For this new store for 0 extra pay because the store is in the middle of nowhere with no major highways. He takes a major pay loss on top of the inconvenience of not being able to come home, sleep in his own bed, and be with his family. Then, about 3 months ago, the supervisor messages both my fiancé and I to say that going forward, we will be expected to confirm all loads, work, or we won't get loads. We receive our work, loads 12 to 24 hours in advance, so we do have some time to confirm them, but it was never a concern before, and we already had a lot of duties to fulfill that it wasn't a priority each day to make sure we typed a message, confirm store 1124, at the end of our shifts each day. The supervisor called us both out on it and said that this was an important part of the workflow process. I asked him why it was suddenly so important. He insisted it was always important. I told him that I had never had to confirm loads each day, and I have never failed to show up for work, and on the super odd occasion where I am unable to do a load, it's because of something like a flat tire, truck breakdown that I'm waiting for repairs, and I was always sure to contact the office and let them know ASAP. Load confirmations are just busy work, that is unnecessary on everyone's parts. The boss insists once more it is, and please just do it. At that point, I gave up the argument. Maybe 60% of the time I remembered to confirm loads. My fiancé, even less. Both my fiancé and I receive angry messages on our work tablet stating that going forward, if we do not confirm a load, it will be assumed that we are not able to work the load and it will be pulled from us and we will be placed on standby, paid at 50% average days load pay if we aren't called in. Well, over winter, most of the loads for this new store canceled because of it getting drowned in snow. Now, my fiancé is getting loads for it again. He got a notification that he was supposed to go to this new store on Sunday. Guess who forgot to confirm his load on Saturday? Sunday, he wakes up. No load and an angry message from the supervisor. Because of your failure to confirm your load, it has been taken off of you and given to someone else who actually wants the work. You're on standby. Fiancé rejoices. Tuesday, he's once more given the new store and forgets to confirm his load and wakes up to no load and an angry message that says basically the same and concludes with, "Call me." So, my fiancé calls the supervisor, and the supervisor wants to know why it's so hard to confirm loads. My fiancé just kind of dismisses it with a shrug and ends the call. We found out Friday after talking to some other drivers that all previously home daily drivers are now doing the same thing. Get a store they don't like, mostly these two new stores. Just don't confirm. If we have to confirm to get to do the store, we just won't confirm. The next story is titled "My Mom Killed My Fake Baby." This happened in high school when I was like 16. Now I am 26 and I am still bitter about it because it wrecked my GPA. So when I was in HS I was in home EC for the second year in a row. At my school, we had different levels of home EC. Like how there's a Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3. So freshman year you did the boiled egg baby experiment, but in the higher level class we got these fancy robotic baby dolls. The dolls had sensors in them in different spots: the mouth, the back, the bottom. We got these key fobs that were sewed into cloth diapers or built into bottles that when the baby would cry we would the fob across the sensor and the baby would stop crying. The baby also had a sensor into the neck that if the neck went too far back it registered it as a broken on your chart. We were assigned the babies for one weekend. At this time I was in marching band and I had games on Friday nights. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to hear the baby cry over the crowd and the band. So I asked my mom to babysit. I showed her how all the key fobs worked and all that. She said she'd do no prob. So I go to the game, do my marching band stuff, I go home. I get the baby back and my mom says that everything went well. I noticed when she gave it back that the baby did have some different baby clothes on and she said they'd gone over to my aunt's and the cousins had dressed the baby up but that she watched them. I got a little annoyed. Told her it wasn't a toy, that it was my grade, but she said told me to calm down. So the rest of the weekend goes by, I take care of the baby and I didn't miss anything. To be fair, I'd been watching kids since I was 14 and my job at the time was at a daycare. I got Fridays off for games and they were closed weekends. So Monday rolls around, we turn in the babies and they print out our e-ports from the computer. I got like a really low score. Like a 57 or something like that. I failed, that's for sure. I am so mad because I didn't do anything wrong. I hadn't missed a thing. On the printout it said that baby's neck had broken like over 10 times, had been left in a dirty diaper like 8 times and hadn't been fed around the same amount. To say I was shocked was an understatement. I knew I wasn't the one who'd done, or I guess not done, any of that. So I obviously confronted my mom, outraged. She had tanked my grade and I was an A and B student. She denied the whole thing and my stepdad tried to say it was me who did and I was just trying to push blame on my mom because I didn't want to admit I did something wrong. So I went back to my teacher and asked her if she could print out another list if the infractions except this time with timestamps on them. She said she could. I also asked that if I could a letter from my parents saying that they had done all that stuff to the baby that she could pass me and she said she'd have to see. So I get the paper and sure enough every infraction was in between the time I dropped the baby off with my mom and the time I picked it up after the game. I took the paper to my mom and confronted her. I remember my stepdad had the audacity to say I had faked it somehow. But I finally got her to admit that she had basically let the little cousins take it to their bedrooms and play with it like it was a baby doll. All while she and my stepdad got drunk with my aunt. They wrote the letter and I got a C, but like I am clearly still resentful. I basically swore that day to never trust my mom with my future kids. This was also when I started to wise up to just how bad my mom and stepdad's drinking was. I had been dealing with it but been in denial since like the 8th grade. But that fall it really just hit me how unreliable they were and how much they prioritized their drinking over me. The next story is titled "Today's My Last Day Working for the Hotel." I've inspired 2 other employees to quit. A bit of sweet revenge. Hello friends. You may remember me from my post explaining that my NA is late every night and I was constantly getting the flack for it. My NA is constantly 45 minutes to 3 hours late without fail, and I was constantly getting in trouble for leaving because I wasn't waiting for her. This caused me to search for a job outside of the industry, and I got one. A perfect 7 to 3, full-time, benefits and weekends off. After consistently idioting to my coworkers that I was tired of my GM's irresponsibility and accountability for his employees, I started a small crapstorm. One employee, an older gentleman, agreed he was tired of dealing with something similar and he decided to put his 2 weeks in. A younger man is actively looking for another job and plans to be out within the next few weeks or so, providing all goes well job hunting. This leaves one person for overnight and one 3 to 11 person for the entire hotel. Am I the a-hole? Maybe. Do I care? No. For months I have stayed hours past my necessary time, came in early, busted my ass, and did everything I could for my boss who never once thanked me, but rather berated me for leaving on time regardless of whether or not my NA was here. I was off for a few days, but today I was made aware that the NA was 3 hours late and the other 3 to 11 person left. Nobody was here, a guest had to wait 2.5 hours to be checked in, and the state police were called. My GM? Not so happy. So today is my last day. Every overly nice and genuine person that walks through that door is getting a discounted rate and I do not give 1 duck, 2 ducks, red ducks or blue ducks. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.